Hello and welcome to Film Lovers. I'm Sonia Chung. I'll be talking to people who work in the film industry and who are also avid film lovers. Today I'll be talking to filmmaker and editor Brad Watson. Hello, Brad. How are you?
Hi, Sonia. I'm fine, thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And I should say that you are a mutual friend of Mark Brown and David Whitney.
I am indeed.
So you
You've
know,
had those. You didn't have them on together, did you?
no, well, I've been trying really hard to get hold of people in the industry, and it's been really
Right,
hard. So how I got people in the first season was just by posting lots of posts on the Facebook groups, film groups,
right.
and that's how I got in touch. Well, Mark got in touch with me, and then he basically suggested you two. I was like, I still need people. Can you help me find people? So so he's very kindly found me you and David. So I guess a good
Wonderful.
way to start off is how do you know them both?
I met Mark. Well, I know David through Mark,
Okay.
um, but I met Mark um, through a mutual friend of ours who's a producer called James Rumsey, um, who co-produced and was the first AD on a feature film, a horror film I made called Hallows Eve,
Hmm.
and um, and we sort of hit it off, and we were talking about getting off, coming up with projects together, and maybe sort of going out into the world as a director producer team, and um, and then I was going to Cannes one year, and James wasn't there, and James sent me a message. He said, "There's a friend of mine going called Mark Brown. You should meet up with him. I think you two will get on like a house on fire." And so we did. Tentatively said hello. 2 beers later, we were just like we've known each other our entire lives, and just when you meet someone that gets the same level of references as you and
Yeah.
loves the same things as you that you don't think anyone even gets, let alone loves.
No.
And me and Mark were just off on one, and that was it. And then basically but Rumsey was being very astute with his introduction, because from then on, the three of us had become quite a solid, director, producer, writer team. We've got a handful of projects that we've got at various stages of development that we are pursuing, as it were, as a team.
So did
And then David Whitney just was drunk all the time every time I
oh
was.
okay. So you
But
just
that,
met
but,
him on a
but
night out.
David's cool. David's cool. And then I start to see David without Mark, and so we're
Okay.
friends as well. So yeah, it's cool.
That's a really nice story. All right, so why don't you usually what I do is I basically start off by saying, why didn't you tell us about how you started off your career, um, and how it evolved basically to where it is now. So basically, how you
Sure.
started and your life story, basically from now, from then to now.
Yeah,
And
the rip roaring page turning roller coaster of our life
yeah, so
story.
how you
Right.
started basically.
um, well, essentially, I was never going to do anything else. At the age of 8, I realized I wanted to be a film director. Even though I didn't know what a director did then, I just knew that I wanted to do it. It was an epiphany, because ET had come out, and up until that point, my favorite movies were Star Wars, but also Raiders of the Lost Ark, Jaws, and Close Encounters.
Mm,
And I had no idea that those 3 movies were made by the same guy, until when ET came out, and my dad said, "Oh, by the way, ET is made by the same guy that made Jaws, Close Encounters, and Raiders," and that blew my mind. I just absolutely went berserk over that, and realized that there was a connection with this guy, and how these movies all played, and then yeah. So at that time, my tiny brain didn't know what a director did, but I just knew I wanted to do that. And so through school, I was the film nerd through all that, and I didn't want to. And I'm what they call a very old man. And at the time I left school, you didn't have to stay on and do A levels. You could leave at 16, and I just wanted to get the hell out of school. Not because I had any particular issues with school. I was just bored with it, and I just wanted
mm,
to get on and make films and get into the storytelling game. And but I was too young to go to film school, and I was too young to do anything like that. So but what I did get on was a stage management course in Guildford, and because I love theatre as well,
Mm.
so I had a real love for theatre, and I at this age, I can seem to be able to get into theatre, but not film. So why don't I just hang out in theatre for a bit, train up in theatre, and sort of get that off my chest, which I did for 2 years. I trained up as a stage manager, worked, crewed on big shows, stage managed fringe shows, tours, wrote music, designed lighting, did the whole shebang of
Okay.
all that, whilst trying to find a way into the film industry, which came via a training scheme. So I ended up doing a 2 year training scheme. This is when I was 18 and just turning 19, I think, and I got onto this training scheme that at the time existed called FT2, which is for Film and Television Freelance Training, which doesn't exist anymore, which is a real shame.
Mm.
And what that did was it placed you would choose your vocation, and it would place you as a trainee on productions. You'd get like a minimum wage for the whole 2 years, and you were just placed on these productions. Me being, I wanted to be a director, but I was also very, visual. Like the Spielberg way of shooting. I love the camera and what the frame is doing. So I thought my way in would be camera. So I first posted on as a trainee on this BBC TV show called Pie in the Sky.
Oh, I remember that show when I was growing
Yeah,
up with
yep, absolutely.
Richard.
Yeah, that's how old I am. Richard
No,
Griffiths, yeah.
but you're about my generation. Is it Richard Griffiths?
Richard Griffiths, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Who played Uncle
and
Monty in With Nell and I.
yeah, absolutely, yeah. And he was, and I just remember him being wonderful. He liked to hold cool. He had stories after stories after
I can
stories.
imagine.
And but that was my first proper experience. But the thing is, in those days, you shot TV shows like that. You shot on 16mm film, and so shooting on 16mm film was the same as shooting on 35mm film. It's just slightly cheaper and not designed to be blown up on a big screen, so you can do it. So the same film crews from movies would work on those sort of shows as well. So
Oh,
I'm doing this. So I'm doing this BBC TV detective show about a chef that solves crimes, and but I'm working with a camera crew that was the operator was on the flying unit for Superman 3. The focus puller had done all the Star Wars movies, all the Superman movies. Would talk about Richard Donner, like Dickie Donner and Dickie Lester, and talk about these guys like their mates. Tell me all the stories about my favorite scenes, and they would be like, yeah, well, I was there and doing that. The art department, they all worked on Star Wars. They all did it, So they're all so working on this little BBC chef program. But I'm working with all these guys that are like made my favorite movies.
yeah.
So I was like a kid in a candy store.
Yeah, of
And the
course.
thing is that I was like, they guessed that I wanted to be a director. I didn't. So because I was 18 at the time. He's this spotty little oink. But they pretty much guessed because of the way I was so into it. But what I then realized doing that, and as fantastic as it was, and having proper on-set experiences is I think crucial. There's so many directors these days who walk on a set and they've never been on a set before. They've never worked in the cog of a film set, and I think that's a mistake, because I think you need to just have a little general overview of how the whole
Everything
machine
works.
works. But so for me, it was perfect for that. It was perfect to meet all these people. But thinking the camera was the way, it wasn't, because I know how to shoot. I know what lenses do. I know all that stuff. But what you don't see on set, you see what the director is shooting. You don't see why the director is shooting it, and that's where you go to the cutting room. When you're in the cutting room, you see why the director's shooting things a certain way, because you see why. Because in his head, it's going to cut with that shot that you guys don't even know about yet, but that's going to
Yeah.
happen tomorrow, and it's going to cut together. So I realized pretty quick that I think I want to get into the cutting room. I want to see this stuff come together now, and I think that's where I had a stint on an art department on a movie called Princess Caribou. Well, I got a chance to meet Phoebe Cates and mentioned to her that Joe Dante was a huge fan of mine from
Oh,
Gremlins.
wow.
But a huge fan of mine. What am I talking about?
Of
That guy
hers.
doesn't know I exist. I'm a huge fan of Joe Dante's. Maybe he's a huge fan of mine. I don't know.
I
I've done
understand.
a couple of podcasts. Maybe he's following me. But,
Don't worry. Had a
so
long
I got
day.
to say that. I got to meet John Lithgow very briefly, who's
Oh, I love him.
yeah,
He was
John
in
Lithgow,
um
amazing.
Footloose,
Yeah,
and
Footloose,
he was in that very funny series in the 90s, Third Rock from the Sun.
Third Rock from the Sun, where he lampoons pretty much every movie he's made. He lampooned
Yeah.
he lampooned Footloose in that. He lampoons the Twilight Zone, the movie he did, where he's in the plane and he sees the guy on the
Oh, is
wing.
he?
Yeah, he
He was
lampooned
in
what else?
oh, Bigfoot. Was he?
Well, Bigfoot and the Hendersons is one of the most underrated gems of a movie
I
out
remember
there,
that film very
and it's
loosely.
because
Yeah.
and it's because of two blokes. It's because of Rick Baker and John Lithgow. Those two, Rick Baker's design of Harry, which I think is the greatest creature ever designed, and John Lithgow sells the hell out of that movie.
Yeah.
And I don't care what anyone says. The ending of that movie where he punches him, "We don't want you anymore," all that stuff. Oh God, it just gets me. John Lithgow is brilliant.
I haven't seen it since I was a kid, but I'll
Ah,
definitely have to.
fantastic. But his best performance of all time, Santa Claus the movie. Come on.
Oh, is he
He's,
in Santa Claus the movie? Okay,
yeah.
that's another one I gotta watch. No,
I don't know.
he's.
Watch Santa Claus the movie. Watch him in that. I mean, he's the most over the top bad
Is he
guy
really?
ever, and he's brilliant. He's wonderful. Anyway, so I got you're skirting around all these. You're seeing these guys, these heroes, and they're like, for a brief moment, you're like sitting
Starstruck.
across you and having a quick chat, and then it's gone, and then you're off on something else. But then I got into the cutting room, started working, and then I basically built up a career in the cutting room as an assistant editor, and an editor, and um, then I did something strange. I then went to film school, because I thought I should, because I'd been working solidly as an assistant editor for 6 years, and I was like, I want to direct. I need to go to film school. So I got into the London, well, at the time it's called the London International Film School, the one in Covent Garden.
Oh yeah. Did you
Yeah.
happen to know anyone called Alex? Because I did a short film for them in like early 2000. I was about 19, and he went there, and then he set up his own production company called Alto Films.
Okay.
Does that ring a bell?
I remember a guy called Alex who was studying to be a DP.
Maybe that was him. I don't know. It was him
Blonde
and
hair,
his
maybe
brown
very
hair.
blonde hair. Brown hair.
No.
Okay, that rings
Okay, so it must
yeah,
have been a different year. So sorry
yeah.
about that. Yeah,
That's
but
all right.
yeah, in Covent Garden.
Well, but the thing is, I only lasted 2 terms there.
Okay. Oh, okay.
I did. I got to make a short film that got very good response there. A movie called Your Days Are Numbered, which is basically just a 2-minute study of a guy pissing everyone off with listening to his earphones on a train, and and then the sound stopping and everyone thinks, and then it starts again, and then in this crowd of people on the train, around him, the camera pans down, and amongst all these people, this hand comes out with a pair of scissors and just cuts the cord, and just cuts to Your Days Are Numbered. It was just like that. But I did that, and but then I got an offer to set up to kind of consult as an editor on a company that was setting up in New York.
Okay.
So I moved out to New York, and I was out there for a year, and had a wonderful time. The company unfortunately didn't manifest into anything, but it was a great time. I came back and I said, right, now I need to direct. So I started directing music videos. I started to get a bit of a name for doing narrative-based videos. People would come to me with their songs, and everyone would be expecting some kind of just performance video. But I would always like, no, we're going to make a story. We're going to tell a story, and we're going to do this. We're going to be with actors. We're going to and which was great for some people. I did 3 music videos for, I don't know if you remember them, a band called the Stereo MCs.
Yeah. What,
Yeah,
connect well, the one I went, "Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Get
yeah."
myself connected. Yeah,
Is
yeah.
that
So
you?
they did. No, I didn't do that one.
Oh, okay.
That was in the 90s. That was
Yeah,
before
yeah.
my time. But that when I was doing this, they had three songs out to pitch for music videos, and I was like, I'm going to bag all three. So I pitched basically making a story that goes across all three songs
Oh, wow,
because
that's
they didn't
really,
want
really
to be
nice.
in it. They didn't want to be in it. They were like, you should make up anything, just something that will work with the song. So I came up with this story that the first one followed a boy, the second one followed a girl, and then the third one saw the resolution of both their stories, and they loved it. But it was a very narrative flow. So I was really, even though I was making music videos, I was exercising my narrative muscles as a filmmaker.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so that was kind of what I did for a while. And then you do the odd promo, you do the odd thing like this. You get involved with projects that never happen, and you spend a few years doing that, um, then I said sod it, and and decided to make a very very low budget movie um, called Asylum Night,
Okay.
and we made it for we made it for 5 grand, and so it was literally just me and the producers and everyone just pulling together some money. We built sets. We did the whole thing. Basically, we were. It was we were doing the Sam Raimi, Peter Jackson thing, and we and it, and but we had it easy because we could shoot on digital.
Yeah.
Um, so and it's terrible digital. I mean, it's standard def. It looks awful, but it's definitely it's not a movie that I point to and go, hey, look, that sells me as a filmmaker.
Yeah.
But it's right. I think it's a really good laugh. It's good fun. It's just it was literally just a horror comedy about an insane asylum on Christmas Eve, hence the title Asylum Night. And underneath this insane asylum, they were holding vampires in cells, and the inmates were really just food for the vampires that they were studying.
Really good idea.
And then on Christmas Eve, there's a party going on, Irwin Allen style. The vampires get out, the insane people get out, and it's just bedlam. And
Yeah.
it gets pretty nuts. It gets pretty surreal, to be honest. It's like we really like just throwing everything at it, and I was just like going mad with the ideas. And it's and it's not a it's anyone who wasn't involved will watch it and go, oh my god. But for us, it was great fun. It was a great way to exercise ourselves, and it was also a good learning experience.
Mm.
But what then happened was I was then picked by what at the time was Screen East to go out to LA. Basically, Screen East was at the time the Arts Council had their regional bodies,
Mhm.
and I'm from Essex, and we were in Essex, and so we come on to Screen East. They put out a call for filmmakers in the area that they were going to take out to LA to the AFM film market and just sort of just show them around, and sort of meet people. Anyway, there was this one company that we had aimed Asylum Night at called York Entertainment,
Okay.
who distributed really low grade, low budget, horror
Mm.
slot, terrible stuff, which is why we thought it would be good for us. We aimed it. We did research before we made the movie, and we did that. Anyway, we'd sent the movie to them, and there had been a bit of dialogue, but then they declined the film. So okay, fine. But anyway, so cut to a little while later, we get taken out to LA with a whole bunch of other filmmakers, some of whom are good friends of mine now, who I met for the first time on this trip, and we they've organised for us to meet some companies, and one of those companies was York Entertainment. We sat down with York Entertainment. We said, "Oh hi, it was me and the producer Janice." We said, "Oh hi, we did Asylum Night, the movie that we'd sent that to you." She's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, the blood splat." We were like, yeah, our logo. Our company was called Revolt Films that made it, and our logo was a blood splat. She
Oh,
went, the
okay.
blood splat. I was like, yeah, the blood splat. She went, I love that movie. I love that movie. But we took it, but unfortunately it got voted out. She said, but But if anything happens to it, like if it, I don't know, if it wins any awards or anything, you let us know. Well, funnily enough, we'd just won the Trauma Fling Award at the Edinburgh Festival for Best UK Feature with it. I mean, it's the Trauma Fling Award. It's just
Yeah.
so but it sounds good. And I mean, Trauma is awesome. Don't get me wrong, but you get to put Edinburgh under it, and people go, "Oh, you won the Edinburgh Festival."
Yeah, well, that's all
Yes,
the good stuff.
yes, we
Yeah.
did. Yes, and so we were able to say that, and she went, let me take it back to my board. Then the very next morning, we're flying back from LA to the UK, and we get an email saying that Jorgen Stemmel will take the movie now. But the funny thing about it is that obviously there's this group of filmmakers taken out there, most of whom have these worthy films, all very talented, all great filmmakers doing their stuff, doing their thing, doing the kind of thing that really we wanted to do, worthy stuff that
Yeah.
tells stories, nice characters, stuff like that. But the success story of the entire trip was us with our stupid little slasher movie set in an insane asylum with vampires, and so that put us in good stint with Screen East. So we then started to develop a movie with them, and unfortunately, before we could get that movie made, Screen East went down the tubes,
Oh no.
and there was all sorts of scandals and things. But what we had done is we developed a movie to a certain point. Now this would be when the Red camera was starting to come out. Now I was a film snob. Because digital had been coming in, high def had been coming in, but to me it all looked like very good quality video. It didn't look like film.
Okay.
So I wasn't interested. But then when Red started to, make their noises, it piqued my interest. And when the first batches of Red cameras came over, I'd made a music video with one just to test it out, and I was like, okay. So when Screen East collapsed, and our project, which at the time was called Flat 7, sort of went down, we had obviously raised a certain amount of money, because no matter how much soft money you get, you've got to get some kind of capital in from private investors or wherever it comes. So there was a little pool of money, which I then said to my producer, Jan. I said, you know what? If we shot this thing on the Red, I think we could still make this. She was like, "Are you sure?" I said, "Yeah." So by that time we had a relationship with a sales agent called Movie House Entertainment. I ran it past them. They said, "Yeah." I showed them the tests that I'd already done on Red, and obviously Peter Jackson was vouching for it. Everyone was vouching for the Red by then.
Yeah.
So we basically, that's what we did. With about a quarter of the budget that we were originally going to make this movie with, we made this movie that became that changed its name to Beacon 77. But here in the UK, it was distributed by Kaleidoscope, and they changed the name to The Seventh Dimension.
Okay.
Which is a name I really don't like. It sounds like it should be on at 3 p.m. on the Sci-Fi Channel or something, starring Dean Cain. No offense to Dean Cain, I love Dean Cain, and Dean Cain, but I'd love to make a movie with you for sure. But at that time, it was like, but the thing is, so we made that movie, and it got a small theatrical release here, got a small theatrical release in a few other countries. It was sold it to about 15 other territories. Sky took it here. It did its thing. It was great. Unfortunately, it got absolutely lambasted review-wise, because it was the kind of release that which I found out afterwards, kind of release that the critics resented, because in those days, in order to qualify for VOD, this is hilarious considering how things work now. In order to qualify for VOD, you have to have a theatrical release. So they would design these small theatrical releases for movies, really just so they could get on VOD. Okay. And the critics resented that. So I was lambasted by name in the Guardian. It was like, I'm like, but this wasn't meant for you.
Yeah.
I really didn't need this with Guardian readers in
Be
mind.
nice to
I'm telling
me.
you. But that was a baptism of fire coming out the other end of that. And trust me, no one, no critic can do anything. But the thing is that when the movie then got its DVD release and its VOD release,
Mm.
and the target audience got it, reviews boom the other way. It was literally 100% terrible reviews, and then went to pretty much 100% great reviews. It was a magazine called Black Static Magazine compared me to John Carpenter and Terry Gilliam. And like the Guardian said I should never be allowed near a camera again.
That's terrible.
And Black Static Magazine is saying that. So that's when you learn maybe the truth is somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
There, So you learn to not believe the bad press, but also not believe the good
The
press.
good one. Yeah.
And I aspire to that for sure. But even I know the movie's shortcomings, and the fact that they saw that in there is wonderful. But I got some great reviews from some good stuff. Asylum Night, by the way, going back to that little chestnut, got a great review from Kim Newman.
Okay.
In Empire magazine.
I used to buy them. I remember when I was a teenager, I subscribed to Empire magazines. Yeah, and I was always getting them through the post. They were really good.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, Kim Newman always did these really cult movies, and he had this thing called the Video Dungeon and all that, and he loved it. And still to this day, I still bump into Kim Newman every now and then, and he still remembers me. Everything I've done since he's still Asylum Night. He remembers me, and when he reviews my newer movies, it's always
goes back to that
Asylum Night in the brackets. It's great, but bless him, he's been very, very nice to me, and I'm pretty sure he's seen some movies of mine that he didn't like, and decided to just describe the plot and not say anything.
Yeah, but that's nice that he's always kind of encouraged you and like remembered you from from that film and your origins and how you started. Where did you film it, by the way? Asylum
Night was filmed literally in a industrial unit in Essex.
Okay.
Wickford town next to where I live.
Was it abandoned then, or did you manage to get?
No, it was a leftover from the guys that I was doing this company in New York with. When I came back, they tried to do something here, so I was kind of involved with that as well, and we rented this unit to try and get stuff going. Again, that didn't end up materializing, but what I did do was make a movie there. But when that was coming to an end, that was when we decided, okay, we've got this place for
so much period of time.
Let's go for it. So we did, and I think Asylum Night because Asylum Night went straight to its target audience. It's probably one of the best reviewed films I've ever done. But
I have to watch it. Where is it? Where can I?
No, don't watch Asylum Night. So we did Beacon and or Seventh Dimension or whatever the hell you want to call it. It's called in Japan. It's called Code 77 or that. Now that was a movie that was basically the whole thematic basis of that movie was the most amazing things happening in the most insignificant places, and that's why it was originally just called Flat 7, because it all takes place in this flat number 7. Actually, it's flat 77, but one of the sevens has fallen off. Because seven is a big number. It is basically about people cracking the Bible code in multi dimensions, and
I didn't know that.
Possibly bringing about the end of days, but that's all in this one little flat.
Yeah,
that's the kind of stuff I do. Anyway, so some people got that, and some people didn't. It's funny that the people that didn't, because it came out not the the Da Vinci Code was still in the zeitgeist at the time. So the people that didn't get it would always compare it to the Da Vinci Code because it's about a code. But the people that did get it knew that the story was actually had more in common with 2001 than it does with that. Purely, I'm not comparing it to 2001 anyway. But it's basically about intelligence beyond our understanding, leaving things for us to unlock when we reach a certain evolution of technology, and that, which is what 2001 is about, and that's what Flat 7 was about.
Yeah.
but all set in one place. So some people got it, and the people that got it really really loved it, and really it was great. It was wonderful to have that. After 6 months of being absolutely berated by the Guardian, it then
Yeah.
became it then was really fulfilling. So that happened, and then I'm sorry, I'll wrap this up very quickly. So then I just carried on. You trying to get movies off the ground. We had several movies in development with movie house attached to sales agents. And and because you're aiming bigger, it becomes more difficult,
Mm.
and things collapse and all that stuff. So you spend a good few years trying to do that. I made some more music videos. I've made some more stuff here and there. Um, I shot a web series, a comedy web series, and I shot. But then I got so frustrated with the whole thing. I was like, right, I'm going to sit down and write a movie. Now, I don't consider myself a writer.
Mm.
I do write. I have my hand in a lot of scripts, but usually collaborating with people who are better writers than me. I'm very much as a lot of directors are. I'm very much a sort of structure kind of guy, and I
Yeah.
have these ideas, and I have these particular ideas for things. But there are guys out there way better at dialogue than me, and way better
Mm.
at getting characterization on the page than me.
It's
Um,
very hard though,
it's
writing. I
not.
mean,
Oh,
everyone thinks it's easy, but I mean, I've tried. I mean, I can only do it for one person, but
yeah,
it's hard to
it's
make it
it's
sound
very
natural
difficult.
between several people. It
Yeah,
really isn't as easy
yeah.
as everyone thinks.
It isn't. No, it's incredibly hard. It's really
Yeah.
hard, and I know that. And and as you know, if you read script, you've got to. If, if you find yourself struggling with the first 10 pages of a script, it goes. I mean, I don't finish them. It sounds harsh, but script's got to. It's got to have that thing, and that
Mm.
is an art itself. But when I was so frustrated with the business and things not happening, I all I could do to kind of keep myself sane was to sit down and write something that I was like, if all else fails, I can get this done off my own back. So I just sat down for a period of 3 or 4 weeks, every day, and just bashed out this script that became the movie Hallows Eve,
Okay.
and that was so it's the only thing out there that, and probably the only thing that'll ever be out there that has the soul written and directed by credit. But I, and basically I just poured my love of John Carpenter and my love of all those movies into it, but wanted to make it but with a modern take. I wanted it to be a love letter to those, but not a copy. It's actually
Mm.
about something completely different. It just references that that stuff, and so I wrote this, and then I went to Movie House, the sales agents, and I said, "Look, read this script. I believe that I can make. I believe that right now, with the savings I've got and the help I have at hand, that I can make half of this movie, and then I'll need to raise the money to do the next half." So I purposely set half the movie in one location, in an abandoned factory. So, and I knew that I could find somewhere and shoot that half of the movie. So that's what I did. And Movie House said, "Sure, if you want to do that, fine, and we'll happily be attached as your sales agent." Because having a sales agent attached always makes everyone happier.
Mm.
And so they stood behind me, and and me and a band of people went out and shot half the movie, and then I had to go out and raise the money for the rest, and which was fun, but that took a year. And then, but I got it, and a year later we were back finishing the movie, shooting the
Wow.
second half of the movie, and it was in that period that I'd met and brought James Rumsey on, who introduced me to Mark Brown. Um,
Ah, okay.
so he came on board because he saw what I'd done, and he was like, "Yeah, I'll help you." And we did, and and so again, tiny budget, but people got paid, and it was done, all shot on the latest Red Dragon at the time, and and visually very ambitious, not just sitting and shoot. I don't cover things like TV. I my brain works in a master shop that moves everywhere and
Yeah.
sometimes can't always do, but I always feel that that's how I love. People love movies for different reasons. The the thing that really attracts me to movies is that feeling of being directed. The feeling of the director, basically you're in their hands and they're literally taking you on a journey. And I love
Mm.
to feel that which is why I like the filmmakers. I like Spielberg and Cameron. Those guys, these movies are directed. They're not just shot and then assembled in a cutting room. And
Yeah.
so I was really gunning for that, even on the low budget stuff. So that so yeah, so we ended up making that movie, got it out there, got it. Fright Fest premiered it. The BFI wanted to screen it, and then Netflix bought it, and we had
Okay.
it. We had a good 18-month run on Netflix, which was
Oh,
amazing.
wow. What
Um, yeah, so
that's
that
impressive. Um,
and
you were
yeah,
saying, you were talking about music videos. I was gonna
yeah,
say that's often a good way for filmmakers to start out, because you think about it, famous ones like David Fincher started out doing
yeah.
music videos, didn't he? He did a few Madonnas.
Yeah. Well, luckily, I was right on the end of that. Like, I didn't do anyone on my profile, but
Yeah, but
I was on
it's
the end
I
of
can
that.
understand why it's a good way to
Yeah,
sort
it
of get
goes
into
in
it.
cycles. But you go back further. It was adverts. It was commercials. Like the likes of Ridley Scott and Alan Parker and those guys, and Tony Scott. They all came from commercials in
Oh,
those
I
days.
didn't know that. That's really
Yeah, yeah.
interesting.
They all shot commercials and made a fortune. I mean, they were successful guys before they started making movies.
Yeah,
Um, and but that's where they came from and learned their visual styles. And then the next generation came from music videos. Um, Problem now is everything has a double edge to it.
yeah.
The ease of technology now, which has its massive advantages. I certainly wouldn't have got those movies made without the advances in technology. But it also means that everybody's out there doing stuff, and it becomes saturated. So music videos now,
We can do
you
it
know,
on iPhones and things, can't you?
yeah,
That's what
it's
Mark
all yeah, it's just
Davis said.
all sorts saturated, and it's really hard to get a handle on. If someone can go out and shoot a music video, it doesn't mean they can shoot a movie,
Mm.
and it's just a different discipline now. But yeah, so I had that success with Hallows Eve, and then I started to work with some other producers, then suddenly I went back into editing for a bit. I was brought on to bigger movies as an editor and working on stuff, and I moved out. I was working in Louisiana for a while, and then I was been working for this company in York, uh, and I've edited two movies for them, and I directed a movie for them last year, and that was with Kelsey Grammer and Caroline Quentin, and
Oh, I saw your
uh,
website. I was like, "Oh my god, he worked
yeah,
with Kelsey Grammer."
yes, yes. And I had worked with him before, but not as a director. But we had, like, in passing, we on a couple of projects out in Louisiana,
Yeah.
and so it was fun for him to. He was like, "Hang on, you're directing this?" And I was
Was
like,
he nice to work with? Is he a
"He
nice
was a
man?
he was a dream. He was a dream. Wonderful. He's very very profound. I mean, the guy's got a, a gajillion hours of being on camera behind him.
And he's
He
also he came from the theatre, so he's obviously
Yeah.
got that voice, hasn't he? It's
Oh,
very
yeah. No, absolutely. And yeah, I think he susses out very quickly if you know what you're doing. And if you
Oh, really?
yeah, and if you do, he's absolute dream. He, like, when we're changing setups, it's like, do you want to go back to your trailer? Kelsey's like, no, no, I'll just sit on the set while we're moving everything
Yeah,
around him.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. He's just like,
But he's
ah,
also directed himself, hasn't he? Because he
oh
did a
yeah,
few Frasier episodes as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's a director. So he knows the whole game. So he he walks in. He doesn't need anything from you as a director. All he needs to know is, are we inside the action or not?
Yeah.
But which basically means, do you really want me to pick these glasses up and make a noise on the table, or should I just mime it?
Okay.
That's literally all he needs to know,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's what you do. And you explain the shot to him, you do that. Obviously, if it makes sense, he's like, yep, yep, got it, got it, got it. Now, there was an interesting little period on that movie, well, a day. We had one day to shoot this whole sequence by a lake, and it was a split day, which means you shoot half day and half night. And we had loads of scenes to do, but we only had this lake location for one day.
Okay.
And we had a lot of night stuff to do, but we had a lot of daytime stuff to do, which was all different scenes, all peppered throughout the movie. And James Rumsey was my first AD on that, and he was very concerned about that. The first half of the day, he's like, we don't have, I don't think we have enough daylight to get it all done. Blah, blah, and I was like, I think we'll be fine. Just let me. He basically flagged. This is what good AD does: is before the day begins, he'll chat with you and go, these are my concerns for that day now. The way the schedule's worked out, and his concern was we had too much to do in the daylight. So basically turn up on set. I said to Ross, the DP, I said, right, you're just going to throw down one piece of track here. It goes from that tree to that tree. Boom. We're going to shoot everything in that direction. Everything. And then Ross went, can we shoot it in that direction? I was like, why? He said, because the sun's over there. Okay, we're going to shoot everything in that direction.
Okay.
And literally, I'm going to cheat the hell out of it. So basically, we set the camera up on this dolly, and basically, I said to the cast, right, I apologize if this is going to confuse you. I said, we've got to rattle through these scenes. I said, but there are going to be times where I'm going to tell you that the lake is over there, and then there's times where I'm going to tell you the lake is over there, and we're actually the other way around, and all that. So I said, but the trees behind you are so undescript that the audience won't know. And so we just banged through all these scenes just because we're all shooting in one direction. You could just literally go cut right onto the next one, cut right onto the next one. Did all this stuff and got through it all. And everyone was fine. Everyone was quite invigorated by it. And I love doing stuff like that when you have to go fast. And it makes you do some creative things as well.
But also you're problem solving, aren't you? I mean, you must get
absolutely.
thrown a million billion problems thrown at you. Like, how do I get through this? How do I get through this? And you have to sort of.
So much of it is problem solving.
Yeah.
But when we finished, I said to Kelsey, I just went up to Kelsey. I was like, "Ooh, that was a thing, wasn't it?" And he was like, he had this big grin on his face, and he was like, "Yeah." He said that was great. He said that reminds me of my days on the sitcom. I was like, yeah.
I love that show.
Fantastic. But so he was great. Caroline Quentin was wonderful. Me and her got on like a house on fire.
I really like her. She's really good.
She's everything you think she is. That she is.
Is she really?
She's lovely.
She does come across really like a genuinely lovely person.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I don't know. Right off the bat, we just hit it off, and we would make each other laugh, and that was great. But yeah, so that was a wonderful experience, and it's I'm not quite sure how much I'm allowed to say about it, but
yeah, don't give away too much. Obviously, don't get into trouble.
It's been taken up by a distributor that whether I'm allowed to say or not, I don't know. Kind of rhymes with Bayern's weight.
Okay.
So that's going out, and there is talk of following. It is intended to be a series,
okay.
And there's talks at the moment of doing 2 more, but that's very early stages.
Yeah.
But that was a lovely, fun family adventure. Because I've done so much horror and thriller and stuff, and it was just lovely to do that. And then, and then this year I cut a horror movie for them because they're directed by a fantastic director called Lisa Bolton, but she was my line producer on that movie. So we'd kind of been through a lot together, and I said, well, I'd love to cut your movie for you, and she was like, great, yeah. So I cut that movie up in York, and now I'm about to go and direct an action movie up there. So that's the next thing that's happening. Touch wood.
Touch wood.
Start shooting on the 29th of November.
Okay, so it's cross fingers. Were you working? So there we are. bring you on the question. So, were you working on anything throughout when the first lockdown came into place, or were you actually quite lucky because nothing was in the works and nothing was about to go into
No,
production?
we no, it was it felt frustrating in hindsight. We were really lucky. We were about to go on the Willoughby movie, but then that got shut down,
Okay.
postponed. There was a few other movies that were going, but through the period, I was very lucky because we were both me and India, my grandparents. So we did that during lockdown, which kept the money coming in.
Okay.
And then, but Willoughby, we did literally. We went into prep on that end of May of 2020. So
Hmm.
literally, we were, the first lockdown was just finishing or just meandering away or whatever the hell it was doing then.
Yeah,
So we,
nobody knew really, did
yeah,
they?
no one knew, but we were just like pressing ahead, and I have to give a lot of credit to Philippe Martinez, the producer of it, and the kind of the head honcho of the whole operation.
Hmm.
He was determined. We need to saunter on. So we were shooting Willoughby in July
Okay.
2020, so we were like right at the start of anything getting going again, and that was weird. It was very interesting, and it was you were
Yeah.
frightened every day you were going to get shut down. We did get shut down for 3 days because a crew member we
COVID.
tested positive, but then they turned out to be a false positive, and we were
Oh, okay.
running again. And other than that, we had no other incidents. How
That's
COVID
very
kind of
lucky.
working
Yeah.
perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was very, very lucky.
Yeah. So it was very good timing then.
Mm.
Um, I can't think of anything else really to ask you. Who were your influences growing up, like filmmaker wise?
Well, obviously Spielberg, but
Oh, yeah,
that goes
obviously.
without saying. And I can talk people's ears off about him and what
Well,
he's
we can
done.
do a countdown of
Yeah,
his stuff if you want, like a theme show of your favorite Spielberg films. And
absolutely
things
right.
like that.
Yeah, people really want to hear me go nuts about Spielberg.
Oh well, listen,
Yeah.
I've spoken to other people, and Mark goes on, and not Mark, my friend Tom, he's been on a few times now. We talk and talk and talk, and it was like, oh god, we've
Yeah.
gone on for about 2 hours.
No, yeah, no,
It's
that's
very
the
easy
problem.
to do, especially when you're
Yeah,
enjoying it.
some of us are like little wind-up toys. You wind it up, you let us
Yeah,
go, and we don't stop. But
no,
but I would say I was definitely I loved like the likes of John Carpenter and Cronenberg, and Sam Raimi was a big influence, and as was Peter Jackson. But my real guys were Spielberg and Zemeckis and James Cameron.
okay,
But one guy who's very special to me, who is the one that I seem to connect with other people the most when I go. One of my all-time favorite film directors is Joe Dante, and
okay.
um, literally, I can wax lyrical about his movies. Gremlins, Explorers, and which is the real Stranger Things, by the way. If you watch Stranger Things and that aesthetic, I'm telling you, Explorers is where most of that is from.
Oh,
And
is that? Oh, really?
yeah, oh god, yeah,
Okay.
Explorers is deep in that. But then obviously, and then Inner Space is freaking wonderful.
Oh, did he do Inner Space? I
Inner
love that
Space,
film.
and one of the most amazing performances of all time is Robert Picardo playing Martin Short playing Robert Picardo. It's
Oh, and
incredible.
when he's playing the cowboy.
Yeah, Robert Picardo plays the space cowboy.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
then
yeah, yeah.
he then ends up plays
That is
Martin
really
Short
good.
because he
I
makes it
loved
look like
that
him,
film as a kid.
pretending to be him. It's insane and it's genius. And then you have but then you have the Burbs, which is the Burbs is amazing. Gremlins 2, which is the most anarchic studio movie made since the 50s, and then the greatest love letter to cinema. I know most people think Cinema Paradiso, which I really do love Cinema Paradiso, but Matinee for me, Joe Dante's Matinee is just it's
Amazing.
it's a blanket I love to just wrap myself up in.
I have to give it a watch. I've never heard
Oh,
of
watch
it.
Matinee. Do yourself a favour and watch
I will,
Matinee.
I
Yeah.
will, I will. My dad took me to see Gremlins when when did that come out? Was it like
84.
80? So I would have been about 4 or 5 years old, and he took me to one of the cinemas in Leicester Square, and I was terrified, so we had to leave. I was really young. I was like, I liked the little cute furry things. I didn't like those
Yeah.
horrible green scary things.
Well, it was intense. I mean, in that, so 84 is a year you got, so Spielberg produced Gremlins, directed, which is totally Joe Dante's movie, but he produced that and obviously directed Temple of Doom, and they both came out in the same year. One had these little monsters that all the parents thought were going to be like ET, blowing up in microwaves, and the other one had people's hearts being ripped out of their chest,
Oh,
and that's when the PG-13
came into play.
thing came about, because they couldn't award these movies, or no, they did award them PGs, but here in the UK, Temple of Doom was cut. They cut out a lot of the stuff in Temple of Doom,
Oh, did
and
they?
and Gremlins was a 15. So I don't know how the hell you got to see it at 4.
Yeah, well,
It's amazing.
I don't know. I mean, I remember, I do remember censorship was different from then
Yeah.
to now. I mean, at one point, I remember talking to someone. One point, Jaws was PG, wasn't it, or
Yeah.
PG, or was it PG-13?
Jaws is PG now. When it came out, it was an X here in the UK.
Oh, but when it first came out, wasn't it a
Yeah.
PG?
No,
So it
it's
was
a
like,
PG.
so it was like a family-friendly film.
Yeah. Well, but it is.
But it's
Jaws is a romp. I don't care what anyone says. Jaws, when Richard Dreyfuss turns up in Jaws, it becomes one of the funniest,
Oh
happiest
no,
films
he
ever.
is very funny in that. But
It's yeah.
the very gruesome scene with Robert Shaw when he gets
Oh
months.
yeah, which is absolutely
I mean, that's a perfect way for him to go,
terrifying.
considering
Oh
he.
yeah, but because you know his fear, because you've had that amazing speech, and then you
Yeah,
got
yeah, on the Indianapolis.
this big plastic thing flapping around. Is terrifying because of the you look at Robert Shaw's face, he sells the hell out of that moment.
Yeah, yeah,
He
yeah, yeah.
he is panic.
He was an amazing. Well, he
He's
was the one
panic.
that probably wasn't he the big celebrity, whereas the other ones, Tom was saying, they weren't very well known at the time. So he was kind of like the one to bring in all the
Well,
money, I
yeah,
guess.
no, I mean they were all. I mean Robert Shaw was probably he he wasn't he wasn't. I think he was a movie star at the time, but he was a well-known character actor.
Mm.
Um,
And he'd been in the
Richard
James Bond
Dreyfuss,
films, hasn't he? One of
yeah,
them.
he was in From Russia with Love, which is my
Yeah.
favorite Bond film. But Roy Scheider was also well known, but not really as a leading man. He was
Okay.
he was well known, and he'd done. I think someone can correct me if I'm getting my years mixed up, but I think before Jaws he'd done The French Connection, which is obviously Gene
Oh,
Hackman's
okay.
story. Roy Scheider was the sidekick, as it were.
Okay.
So he was known for that. But yeah, but he wasn't. I
A
think it launched.
leading man as such.
Yeah, but I think so. I think Robert Shaw was definitely the Peter Cushing of Star Wars than any of them,
Mm.
and that. So yeah, but he was apparently a handful, but
I
he delivered.
heard. And
He delivered.
apparently, because I'm a nerd as well, so I watch all those behind the scenes. And I was saying that when he did that famous speech about the Indianapolis, which was a horrible real event that happened
Yeah, yeah,
during the Second World War, um, that he improvised that all, didn't he? And also, he was notorious for being an alcoholic, and he was completely drunk out of his mind. But then
yeah.
for that, so they had to have a word with him because he was out of it completely. But for
Mm.
some reason, when he did that take, he managed to keep it all together, and then that's when this amazing improvised.
Yeah, I think that there's always it's kind of legendary, that speech, and it's always who wrote it. Where did that come from? But Spielberg is, when you listen to him, he's usually pretty spot on with his memory of things, and he says it's a combination of people. It's basically, but Howard Sackler wrote the first draft of that script.
Okay.
Then John Milius rewrote it and really gave it a bit of punch. and then Robert Shaw rewrote John Milius. So
It
there
kind of,
weren't
yeah,
owners like
evolves.
that. Yeah. So I think Spielberg says really it's Milius and Shaw both together were the main gave that move that speech. It's because it's infamous. It's
Yeah.
such a well-known speech now, and it's cinema history. The movie about the shark, but the real moment, and that's why that movie is brilliant. That's why
Yeah.
that movie is one of the best movies ever made, because that's what it's really about. It's about that moment. It's about those characters, and it's about those. It's genius. It's
It's
a
timeless
it's
as
a,
well, isn't it? I
it's a
mean,
work of art wrapped up in a big. It's fantastic.
yeah. Um, is there anything else you want to talk about before we wrap it up?
Oh, I could go on forever, but
Well, we'll do a follow up some other time if you want.
yeah, yeah, no,
Yeah?
absolutely, no, for sure. Yeah, this has been fun.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, when we because we're about to sign out, why don't you is there anything you want to plug before we do?
Anything I want to plug?
Because Mark's been doing Dave and David was doing it. He was trying to sell some comedy tickets
All
and
right, yeah,
Guardians with Mark.
Guardians, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
which is great, by the way. I
I'll
saw
give it a
Guardians.
watch. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, Guardians is really good fun, and it's the perfect role for David Whitney. He's, you know,
Yeah,
he,
yeah, yeah, I have to definitely give it a watch.
yeah, it's great. So I have nothing particular to plug at the moment
Okay,
because
that's
my latest movie isn't out yet.
okay.
It's
And obviously you don't want to
out.
spoil it.
Yeah, exactly. But next time I will.
Okay, awesome. All right. So thank you, Mark. Brad.
That's all
Sorry.
right. We confuse each other, so it's fine.
All right. Well, thank you for talking to me, and feel free to come back anytime.
You're very welcome anytime.
Thank you.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye.